Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast, where we throw out the old blueprint so you can become who you were always meant to be. I'm your host, Jason Smith, and if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button and share this podcast with your friends on social media and tag me in it at JBirdFit. Today, I have a very special guest for you. Dr. Robert Glover, therapist, coach, speaker, and educator, is a relationship expert with over 40 years of professional experience. The author of the groundbreaking No More Mr. Nice Guy, the best-selling Dating Essentials for Men, and the recently released Dating Essentials for Men Frequently Asked Questions, Dr. Glover has helped thousands of men worldwide transform their lives and get what they want in relationships, sex, and career. Dr. Glover, welcome to the Blueprint Podcast. Every nice guy has an origin story. If you turn to social media and dive into the comments section, you'll find no shortage of men who identify with the framework of being a nice guy, but their personal definition is unique to them. And what we find in your book doesn't quite line up. When did you first discover nice guy syndrome, and how did that lead into writing the book, No More Mr. Nice Guy?
All right. So go in the Wayback Machine. Where this process began for me would have been in my early 30s, and I'm 68 now, so that's 30 plus years ago. I was in my second marriage, and my wife confronted me, my then wife, and she says, "Everybody thinks you're such a nice guy, but you're not. You can hurt me badly. I can't trust you. You embarrass me. You don't follow through on things you say you're going to do." And she goes, "You need help." I said, "If you don't go get help, I'm leaving." And I'm thinking, you're the one who hates yourself and is in a bad mood all the time and never
It's
wants
got
to
to
have
be
sex
you.
anymore. It's all right. I'll go get help. I do everything under the sun to try to make you happy, and you still can't be happy, but okay, I'll go get help. And I was a nice guy. I didn't want to lose the relationship. So luckily, I landed in some good places when I went seeking help. I landed in a 12-step group for sex addicts because she said, "You're a sex addict." Mainly because I wanted to have sex with her and she didn't want to have sex with me. We're only 2 years into a marriage. And so I went, quickly found out I wasn't having enough sex to be a sex addict, but it was an amazing place for me to be. It was all guys, usually about 8 or 9 guys. I think met 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning once a week. I looked forward to going to that because the first time in my life, I started revealing me. I started being open. I started being vulnerable. And I also got into therapy at the same time. And that was great because for the first time in my life, I was in my 30s in my second marriage and already had a PhD in marriage and family therapy. And a therapist taught me about boundaries. I'd never heard of boundaries before. I had no clue what they even were. And then I landed up in a men's group led by a female psychologist who'd written some books about sexual shame. So I really somehow, luckily, ended up in some really good places that really begin to put a spotlight on this paradigm I had yeah, if you'd met me, I told you I'm a nice guy. I'm different from my father. I'm different than all the men that I hear all the women complaining about, all the jerks, all the men that only want one thing. I won't be that guy. So I was repressing my sexual agenda, using what I call nice guy seduction, listen to them talk about their problems. I'll try to help them fix their problems. I'll be different from other men. So the spotlight on that paradigm started getting focused on my belief that if I was just a nice guy, in other words, if I become what I thought other people wanted me to be, I'd be liked and loved and get my needs met. But in the process, like I found out in that 12-step group, all the things I need to hide from people so they don't reject me, get mad at me, not love me. So I began to see that what I was doing. I was trying to become what I thought people wanted me to be and hiding anything that might lead to rejection or some uncomfortable experience. That probably came from fundamental Christianity that I grew up with, an angry, capricious God that is looking for ways to send you to hell for all eternity. From a father that you never know when you walked in the room if what he was going to criticize or basically bitch at you about. To the angry feminism of the 60s and 70s. That's every man's a rapist and erection's a sign of aggression. I heard those things as an adolescent. To my mother, who as a codependent was raising me to be different from my father and all the bad men out there. So all of that stuff played into that nice guy paradigm. What really then took it to the next level is I had a practice as a marriage and family therapist, and I started noticing guys coming, often with their wives or girlfriends, were saying the same things I was saying. I'm a nice guy, one of the nicest guys you ever want to meet. I treat her better than her ex. I'm raising her kids. I do everything for her. I try to make her happy. It's never good enough. When's it going to be my turn? And oh, she never wants to have sex anymore. Then there were the single guys who I didn't immediately connect them because I was in relationships. I related more to the relationship complaint that mimicked mine. But then the single guys that say I have lots of female friends, they all think I'm amazing. They all say, "Oh, you're going to make some woman so happy. Some lucky woman's going to be
Someday.
so." Yeah, but they don't want to date me. They don't even think of me. That's before like friend zone
Right.
even was part of our vocabulary. But that's what happened is they were in the friend zone. So I started a No More Mr. Nice Guy men's group 25 plus years ago and quickly became a second group. And I just started writing what I was learning about me, about this thing I was starting to call nice guy syndrome. Kept writing for about 6 or 7 years, and people kept saying, Robert, you should write a book. You should go on Oprah. This could be a bestseller. So no pressure there. And I did. And then I kept writing. Took about 6 or 7 years to write No More Mr. Nice Guy, and about 3 years to get it published because a lot of publishing companies said, Robert, we like your book. It's a good book. It's well written, but our marketing department says men won't buy a self-help book. That was 20 plus years ago, and they were wrong. Men buy self-help books. They buy a lot of them, maybe especially thanks to Amazon that people, now that people listen to podcasts like this, they go, oh, I'm going to go on Amazon and check that book out. And then
Right.
Amazon said, people who bought this book and this book. Now, whether or not guys actually read them all, we do buy them.
Yeah.
And then they just stay on our
Might sit
Kindle
around
or,
for a minute. Yeah.
you maybe go on a shelf somewhere behind us. So that's the story that led to me becoming aware of my nice guy pattern, seeing the bigger pattern among men, and then writing a book about it. And I've been working with nice guys for the last 25 years to this day.
It's so interesting because that internal phrase that the nice guy carries with him is always when something's not going right, when something's not going well, when something isn't going as you expect it, because you have all these expectations, it always comes back on, I'm such a nice guy. I just
Yeah.
don't get it. And so,
I have to try harder. She isn't happy. I'll try harder to make her happy. Or she keeps pointing things out. I don't like being pointed out. I'll either defend myself or hide them better. I'll get
right.
better at hiding that stuff.
So there seems to be a lot of confusion these days about what it means to be a man and what a nice guy actually is. And is it okay to be a nice guy? What's wrong with being a nice guy? So can you give us a definition of what it means to be a man in the modern world? And then, of course, why is it not
Yeah.
okay to be a nice guy?
I'm not going to give a definition of what it means to be a man. I know you can go on the internet and find a zillion definitions, based
Everybody's
on,
got their own brand of it for
yeah,
sure.
especially if you get caught up in red pill stuff, you're going to get
Right.
all kinds, especially if you get caught up in Navy SEAL stuff, especially if you get caught up in our worship of achievement stuff. People will ask me occasionally, what's your definition of a man? I don't have one. But I can tell you what's wrong with being a nice guy. Pretty much start No More Mr. Nice Guy, putting a spotlight on, you would think a nice guy would be a nice guy. But if you go back to what I said, the nice guys are doing, they're trying to become what we think other people want us to be. We're guessing what will make that person happy. Like if you invite me on your interview, on your show, and every time I notice you nod your head, okay, that he liked that. I'll keep talking that kind
Confirmation.
of stuff. But yeah, but if you go like that, I'll go, oh, okay, I won't bring up that stuff anymore. What kind of interview would that be? It'd be pretty
Right.
uninteresting, but I'd be inauthentic. I'd be dishonest. I wouldn't just be coming from my truth. I'd be saying what I thought you wanted to hear. So you really didn't know. Did I really think that and believe that? Or am I just saying it because I think you want to hear that? When nice guys are trying to become what we want other people to be, we are inauthentic. We're not being ourselves. We're not telling the truth. And so maybe coming back to what's a man, be your fucking self. Be who you are. And then that other part, everything we're hiding from people because we think, and this always begins early in childhood because we get maybe a negative reaction, a frown, a punishment if we have a need or a want, or everybody else's needs and wants maybe seem more important than ours. A sibling's a problem, maybe mom's depressed, maybe dad's angry, alcoholic, exhausted. So most nice guys do hide their needs, their wants, their sexuality, their desires, their opinions, if they think it might lead to something negative, which means we're not honest. We're not at all honest. And so you can't really ever know what a nice guy wants, thinks, feels is going to do. And then in addition to that, if you start hiding things like your sexuality, I promise you, sexuality is too powerful of a life force to hide it anywhere. It's still going to manifest, but now it gets manifested in these dark, hidden, secretive, often hurtful kind of ways. So when I say about, okay, be a man, be yourself. The problem with that is so many men I talk to go, apparently being myself isn't working because women don't seem to be attracted to me when I'm myself, or my wife doesn't seem to want to have sex with me when I'm myself. And I'll ask them, how many people do you actually let see the real you? Do you let you see the real you? And I think that's where the problem lies, is that so many of the men I work with have just internalized this message. Being me isn't okay or good enough. So I either got to become better or just hide that. Or as you said earlier, just not try. Just I try. It doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah, they end up having a poor self concept.
I'm not really a big fan of terms like poor self concept or low self esteem because they actually tell us almost nothing. If you don't, for example, talk to a woman because they scare you, you could say, if I just had a better self concept, I could talk to women. That might still scare you. So
Maybe. Yeah.
we do often have a lot of self limiting beliefs. But let's back this up even further. 'Cause I know you work around attachment. So let's go back even further. Is that we come into this world, every human being comes into this world completely needy, dependent, and vulnerable. Our brain is way underdeveloped. A male's reasoning brain doesn't finish developing until about age 25. That's why our car insurance goes down. We quit doing so many stupid things. We're a little more reasonable. We're not just reactionary. So when we come into this world, because we're every little child is completely vulnerable, needy, dependent, immature in the processing. We're not thinking yet. We're just reacting. We're feeling. Every uncomfortable experience gets internalized into a very primitive part of our brain called the amygdala. It gets stored up as emotional memory. Children are narcissistic by nature. They believe, without being able to think it, that they are the cause of everything that happens. So all children start doing a couple of things in a very primitive way at a very early age. When we experience things that make us uncomfortable, we start trying to manage those uncomfortable feelings. Maybe we cry, maybe we sleep, maybe we suck our thumb. I sucked my thumb till I was in kindergarten. So maybe I was dealing with uncomfortable feelings. We'll go along to get along. We'll become oppositionally defiant. Those are terms that most of us even don't even understand as an adult, but that's what we're instinctively doing, like just a reflexive animal trying to respond to pain, right? We're not thinking enough. It's an emotional reaction. So not only are we trying to manage the uncomfortable feelings that we have, we're also trying to, using a very primitive brain, figure out how to not do the things that cause those uncomfortable feelings or how to do something different so that I don't feel those things. Again, this is using a brain that doesn't even have reasoning power yet, just emotional reactive power. So every one of us as a child, when we had uncomfortable experiences of any kind, we were hungry and didn't get fed, we were cold and didn't get wrapped up, we messed in our diaper and didn't get changed, or mommy and dad are angry and yelling, or parents split, or parents an addict or depressed, whatever it is, any uncomfortable feeling we internalized, I caused that, I got to fix it. Everybody does that, not just nice guys. It's just one way of doing that. So we grow up then, and that becomes our machine language, our operating language for it gets combined with the temperament we already have. And now we start seeing the world through that lens. How do I manage uncomfortable feelings? How do I keep uncomfortable feelings from happening to me? Then we hit adolescence and we want to be accepted by our peer group, liked by the opposite sex, however we define the opposite sex. And so now we got to figure out, how do I have interactions with other people with and manage hurt and discomfort? And so that's where all of our neuroses and defense mechanisms come into. That's where attachment styles come in. We're trying to do something that we're wired to do as humans, get close, at the same time trying to do that in ways that we don't ever get hurt in any way. Now, that would be messy enough if just one person in a dyad was trying to do that, but both people are trying to do that. That's where nice guy syndrome comes in. That's where I'm not on social media much. I'm not a huge fan. But in general, almost everybody that breaks up and posts it on social media, for guys, their exes were all either narcissistic or BPD. And for the women, they're all either narcissistic or sociopaths. I've been a therapist for over 30, 40 years. I've not met that many sociopaths or narcissists. But nowadays, everybody's amateur diagnosis, and unfortunately, probably everybody's amateur diagnosis of attachment styles as well. But the truth is, we've all got attachment issues. We all have attachment issues, anxious attachment issues, because we're all trying to get love and connection and not feel vulnerable, get hurt, or get exposed in any way whatsoever. So nice guys do that in their own unique way, but everybody else does too in their own unique way.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with the amateur diagnosis of a lot of things in the psychology space, and it ends up becoming a barrier to connection because you don't fully understand the concepts that you're talking about or that you're just casting out on all the people in your life. And then you expect them to come to you and relate to you and to be with you and to have conversation with you and connect with
Yeah.
you when you're throwing up this massive barrier and you're not realizing that you're the one that's causing this disconnection between you and others. You don't know how to relate to other people.
Yeah, we're either attracting people to us that feel familiar, so that let us use our relationship tools we developed when we were 2 months old, 2 years old. So, of course, they act in ways that let us use these as relationship tools that were built on moments of pain and abandonment and discomfort. So, we either attract those people to us or we turn them into people that we can use those tools on. Because if the people don't match our relationship tool set, we either don't see them, we don't even know they exist, or if we ever do begin to interact with them, we quickly move on because we just don't even know how to manage our own relationship fears, anxieties, expectations, projections, because these people don't match our own. The human mind wants familiarity. So that's why if you listen to one person who talks about one bad relationship, they probably have a list of bad relationships because they've probably been doing a lot of the same thing over and over again. That
Yeah.
includes me. I tend to do the same things
All
over and over
guilty.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we look at trying to manage relationships or to manage the things that are going on in our life, you talked about covert contracts. What are those and what do they look like?
Okay. Covert contracts. I think that's probably one of the key core dynamics of nice guy syndrome. A lot of people tell me that's the part they really got a lot out of in No More Mr. Nice Guy. So I'll define them even more clearly than I do in the book. Most nice guys, nice girls operate from three fundamental covert contracts. They're all if then propositions. They're all manipulative in nature and they all have strings attached. That's why they're manipulative. They have strings attached.
If I go to the
And
gym and get muscles, then everybody will want to date me.
yeah, that's a fairly generalized covert contract, but we
It's
usually get more specific. If I
specific.
go
Yeah.
to the gym and get muscles, that woman who I think's really hot will want to get naked with me. We can have real general ones. If I'm a good guy, God will love me and bless me. We can get really general,
But that seems to be
all
like
the
the
way down to
ramping up into it
yeah.
with our
Is,
internal
is
dialogue.
so they're all an if then. Now, but the problem, there's a lot of problems, but a couple of the core problems is often the nice guy or nice girl doesn't even realize they're being manipulative, that there is a covert contract. I didn't know that. I just thought I'm a nice guy. Everybody should like me and love me.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
your
that's a
normal.
covert contract. If I'm nice, I should be likable. The other problem is nobody else knows that the contract exists. Okay, so let's take the three covert contracts. Number one, that is, if I'm a good guy, I will be liked and loved. And where you really see this kind of blow up a lot in blogs and social media, especially when women are writing blogs, beware of the nice guy. What happens is that, and for good reason, what happens is that the nice guy uses that nice guy seduction I was talking about. They meet a woman, they don't think I can just get a woman I'm attracted to be attracted to me. So I'll pick a woman that I think needs a little help. I'll listen to her talk about her problems. I'll help her. I'll make her car payment. I'll help her move. I'll help her sister move. I'll move her in with me because she doesn't have a place to live. And
Oh,
then she'll
that's a
like
big
me,
one.
love me, and she'll want to have sex with me. Even while the nice guy related, really dysfunctional covert contract. If I hide my sexual agenda from you, then you'll think I'm different from other men and want to get naked with me. Okay. Not a lot of there's not real sound logic behind that one, but it's part of the nice guy seduction. If I hide my sexual agenda, you'll feel sexual. You'll think I'm different from other men. So if I'm a good guy, you'll like me and love me and want to get naked with me eventually. And then if you marry me, you'll want to get naked with me on a regular basis because I'm a good guy, right? not because you like me, you're attracted to me, you enjoy me, just because I think I've checked the boxes off. Covert contract number 2 of nice guy syndrome. If I read your mind and meet your needs without you having to ask, you should read my mind and meet my needs without me having to ask. Now, number one, I'm not near as good a mind reader as I think I am. All the while I think I'm meeting all these needs for you, often you could take it or leave it. And maybe I'm speaking my particular love language, thinking you're going to like that, but it's not even your love language. So you didn't even know I did all that to meet your needs. And you didn't know that there was a contract, a reciprocal contract. You got to read my mind and meet all my needs without me having to ask. Now, of course, you're not going to do a good job reading my mind either. And I, as a nice guy, will even make it difficult for you. I won't give you a clue what my wants, needs, or desires are, because for nice guys, that we think that makes us bad men. I'll get in trouble if I have needs, or people will reject me if I have needs. So all the while, we're not letting you know what our needs are, giving to you so you'll give back, and not letting you give to us. Nice guys are terrible receivers. Then we end up getting frustrated and resentful and passive aggressive and not so very nice. Okay. Covert contract number 3. If I do everything right, then I should have a smooth, problem free life. That's with God. God, I do everything right. How come I'm still not happy? I still don't have money. I still don't have a girlfriend. And we'll do that at work. We'll do it in relationship. Wait a minute. Don't accuse me of anything, or don't point out any mistakes I made, or don't remind me I forgot I forgot to do something I said I would do. I have enough good deeds in the bank. I'm a good enough guy. Everything should always go okay. That's a really Peter Panish way of viewing the world, is that like somehow the world could go always the way we want it to. So, and all of these covert contracts, not only do they not work, when they don't work, nice guys just double down on the same 3 covert contracts rather than go, why isn't this working? It's because she's a borderline, she's a narcissist, or she's a trauma survivor, she's this, she's that, she has attachment issues. But we don't realize we're just repeating the same things that don't work. And Einstein said, whatever thinking created the problem we're in, that same thinking is not going to get us out of the problem. But again, what else are we going to do? That's the only roadmap, model, and meme that we have to work on. Be good, read other people's minds and give a lot, and just do everything right. And so often, again, these leads us to being pretty unhappy and frustrated, and not being very nice a lot of times.
Yeah, it's really a victim mindset that you get stuck in.
It will lead to it in a hurry. Yeah.
So, how can the nice guy begin to create awareness around this subconscious way of interacting or believing who they are? How can they get around that?
They could buy a really good book on the subject.
Right.
Yes. There you go. You know what? I get emails daily and have for years from men, but a number
And you
from
always
women as
will, because
well.
they're always being created.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The number of nice guys out there, I think, has expanded since I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Oh, yeah.
Since it came out in print 20 something years ago. But guys say, how did you know me so well? You've been following me around. You have cameras on. You're spying me.
Yeah,
I'm going
you
to sue
live
you.
in.
Invasion of privacy. I'm a recovering nice guy. And I worked with a lot of nice guys in the process of writing the book. So often the covert contracts is really a pretty good place for nice guys to start recognizing their behavior. Go, yeah, I do that. Yeah, I do listen to them talk about their problems so they'll like me. Yeah, I do try to read their mind and give to them. Yeah, I do tend to avoid conflict and hide anything that. So it it almost needs to be somehow spotlighted for the average nice guy. Now, occasionally I'll get an email or somebody will join one of my programs and say, Robert, before I found your book, I'd already realized I had this nice guy thing, and I already realized it wasn't working. And I'd already realized they started like I did. I didn't read a book on nice guy syndrome. I just, like I say, ended up in some good therapeutic environments that helped me start seeing it in me. And the fact that I was a therapist, I got to start seeing it in other people. So that I had a unique situation. So some people do discover this on their own. They're intuitive enough to realize, okay, these covert contracts, me giving to get, it isn't working very well. But a lot of people have to have it put in the spotlight. They see a YouTube video on the subject. A therapist gives them the book. A fellow member of a 12-step group gives them a book. A member of their church. I can't tell you how many guys have said that either a partner, a wife, a girlfriend, or an ex gave them the book. So it almost requires a man, and again, a woman, because there's nice guy syndrome, nice girl syndromes existed as long or longer than nice guy syndrome. Putting a spotlight on the behaviors of the conflict avoidance, the repetitive bad choice in relationship, picking people we think we have to fix, how we have to sacrifice ourselves to try to get people to like us and want to be with us, our lack of boundaries. Once the spotlight's on, people often then wake up pretty quickly. That's me. That's me. And they want to know, what is the alternative? How do I do it differently? And as I say in No More Mr. Nice Guy, don't try to do it alone. You did not become a nice guy in social isolation. You won't read a book and go, okay, this is all I need to quit being a nice guy. I found that, you need to go find safe people, begin revealing yourself, begin releasing what's called toxic shame. What was beneath that belief that I'm not good enough, I have to hide things about me, I have to become what other people want me to be. All the things that's gotten in the way of us having the kind of relationship we want. We have to start doing this work. I would coach, a therapist, but I found it works best in a group, whether it's a 12-step group, a support group, therapy group, because then we're in a social context. Our nice guy patterns start showing up big time, and they can be. We can get a spotlight put on them, and we can get information about more effective ways of going about connecting with people and getting our wants and needs met.
It's always interesting when you dive into the comment section, pretty much on any social media post where they're talking about this type of content, and you can see the struggle that these guys are going through. I had somebody post this morning on my content, and it's, you go to their page and you look at what they have going on and the circumstances, and you get a little glimpse or glimmer into their life, and it's just, you don't like yourself, you haven't accepted yourself, you don't really know who you are, where you're going, what you're doing,
Hmm.
or why you're doing it, but you know enough that you're in pain, and you know that you're spreading that pain around to make yourself feel better in the moment, but it never actually makes you feel better.
No, of course it doesn't. And you don't even know if most people walking around saying, "I don't like myself. I don't like myself."
They don't
I
say
think,
it, but they
but it's
exude that.
it's in that machine language that
Yeah,
and that's the form of toxic shame. I'm not good enough. I'm bad. I'm unlovable. And then
defective.
and then we go through life, and that's the machine language. Then we go use a confirmation bias to go prove that over and over
And
again.
give me all
You
the
know,
evidence.
if we get teased or bullied on the playground as a kid, there's all the evidence. If the girls giggle at us when we try to talk to them when we're 14, there's the evidence. But that happens to everybody. Most of the stuff that we internalize, this is because I'm not good enough, is often the stuff that's happening to everybody. But it just gets layered on top of that internalized emotional belief we developed before we could even be reasonable about it. And then we go about life trying to get our needs met while not having that not good enough, that unlovable, that defective thing triggered inside of us. Liking this back to the attachment thing. Really good book. One of my favorite books is called The Wisdom of No Escape. It's written by a Buddhist monk by the name of Pema Chodron. And it's a series of lectures and that she gave at a retreat. She does this so humorously and beautifully that she said, because of those, basically those core wounds that we all have, we armor up. And I said, everybody's armor is different. It might be a coat of mail, it might be tough leather, it might be porcupine-ish, it might be anything to protect ourselves from feeling vulnerable, of people getting too close and finding out we're not good enough, we're not lovable, we're not what they think. And she says we'll get our offensive weaponry. It might be a big saber, a sword, a lightsaber, our quick wit, our criticism. So what
Criticism.
we're doing is we're trying to get love, we're trying to get connection, which we all need, we all crave, while protecting ourselves with our defensive armor and keeping anybody at bay who might hurt us with our offensive weaponry. Like the Leonard Cohen song, Hallelujah, there's a line in there, something about all I learned from love is how to shoot someone who outdrew you. That's all we learn from love, right?
Yeah.
I'll shoot you first before you can hurt me. And so Pima talks in that book, The Wisdom of No Escape, how each person individually and uniquely, how they start cutting into their own armor. Some it might take a blowtorch, some it might take just a bandsaw. How do we start pulling that armor off? And it's going to feel really vulnerable underneath all that, really raw. And how do we lay down the weaponry that is protecting ourselves from getting hurt from somebody else that we're trying to get loved by? If you think about it, just the process of getting love, getting relationship, getting depth of connection really depends on two people who've both been hurt, who've both been wounded, who've both internalized inaccurate messages about themselves, who armored up to protect themselves from getting hurt again, who got the weaponry out to keep people at bay who might hurt them before they can hurt you. How do those two people use that relationship as a way to start shedding all of that armor and weaponry and get down to that core inaccurate belief that I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not okay just the way I am. And I think the only way to really do that is in relationship. I don't
Yeah.
think we can do it from reading a book. I don't think we can do it from watching YouTube videos. I think we actually have to risk getting in a relationship, watching all our defenses come up, watching our weaponry come up, getting hurt by everybody else's defenses and weaponry,
Yeah.
not resorting to going on social media and calling them all narcissists, sociopaths, and borderline,
But that's so
and just
easy.
say, oh, I know. It all so easy. And that's one of the reasons I don't love social media.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, social media is the cheap and easy way to do the hard work of being human. And social media just makes it really, oh, that's all I got to do. That's all I got to do is go like this. Oh, I can go like that too. I can find love by going like that. That's not
Yeah.
how you find love, but social media, but
You'll
that's
find
actually
something.
easier than going out and actually having a real struggle with a real human being that gets on my nerves sometimes as I get on their nerves.
Yeah.
But
And
how else,
going all
how
in.
else we're going to do the work? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to go in all in with the person that you desire to be with. Without that, they're never going to know who you are, what you're all about. And you're never going to feel connected to somebody. And that's really what all of us want at some point or another, even though people deny it on social media. I don't need this person. I don't need that. I don't need a man. I don't need. Good luck to you. You're going to live a long life and be disappointed by it every step of the way.
If you even look statistically, I'm going to misquote the statistics. A couple of years ago, a couple of different surveys came out. And for the first time since they started tracking numbers relationship wise, this is US statistics. Over half of all adults 35 and under reported not being in a relationship in the last year. And like over half of males, like something like it was 24 and under, 24 to 16, report not having had sex in the last year or never having had sex. We've got all the dating boot camps, we got all the swipe right apps, we got all the ways that people can connect using technology in ways that our parents and grandparents didn't have access to. And we can't fucking get into relationships. There's something going on there. And I'm thinking that maybe the very hookup culture created by our technology is actually working against us, actually ever having what we probably most deeply crave, a true, honest, vulnerable relationship with another messed up human being, while they are also working at being honest and vulnerable at the same time.
Yeah, a lot of it. I talk a lot about self love on my platform and knowing who you are as a person. And so many people are running around never having asked themselves some really important questions about what do I want? Where am I going? What are the next steps for me? If I were to use the language of a shared mission and vision in a relationship and actually try to build something with someone and co create, and I use that language, could I have the type of relationship that I want to have?
When I got divorced from my second marriage in my late 40s and got out into the dating world for really the first time as an adult. I got married the first time to somebody I met in college. So I was never a very good dater. So I had to learn how to date and got good enough at it that guys wanted me to teach them what I was doing and ended up teaching courses and writing a couple books on dating. And I really take the approach of conscious dating. I'm not a big fan of all the pickup and all the pickup lines. And I really just encourage people to be real with each other. And as I was dating, one of the things I started doing over time is that if I dated a woman, say more than 3 or 4 dates, and it looked like we were going to keep seeing each other. We didn't know how long that might last, but what I started telling women, I told maybe 3 or 4 women this. I told them, I said, if we keep seeing each other, here's what you can expect from me. I'll be conscious. I'll pay attention to us, to me, to you, and what's going on. I'll be honest. Everything I'll tell you will be the complete truth. You'll never find out I left anything out or diverted your attention from something or lied to you. So I'll be transparent. You'll know what I think, what I feel, what I want, where I'm going, what I want from you. And I will set the tone and take the lead. I won't burden you with what do you want to do tonight? I'll show up with a plan.
Where do you want to go for dinner?
Yeah, what do you want to go out tonight? You want to do something? Yeah, women
Yeah.
tell me that just feels we think we're being nice and generous, but women say it burdens them. It's just
Right.
one more thing they got to figure out. So every woman I told that to, probably about 3 or 4 women, they all got to look and go, you need to write another book because I've never had a man tell me anything like that before. And I believe that's probably accurate. How many of us get into relationship with the idea I'm going to use this relationship in as conscious way as possible to use it as what David Snarch calls in Passionate Marriage, a powerful personal growth machine. And how can I lead in that way and invite the person I'm with to use it in the same way to create what I call the relationship teeter totter. As I grow and you get insecure that I might outgrow, you go, you can either try to pull me back down or I better grow too. And
Yeah.
as you grow and I get some anxiety, you might outgrow me. I can either try to pull you back down or I can grow. And so all of a sudden, this turns into this powerful personal growth machine of two people who are bringing their woundings, their bad experiences, their defensive armor, their offensive weaponry. How do two people bring that and say, we're going to get on each other's nerves? We're going to question, why did I pick you? Do I want to be with you? And can we use all of that as a way to both of us grow? Now, there, of course, there needs to be boundaries in there, that there are things that are off limits. Infidelity is off limits. Emotional abuse, physical abuse are off limits. Those aren't things you should put up with thinking, but it's a powerful personal growth machine. There does need to be lines that get drawn, but that's even part of the powerful personal growth machine. I've had conversations before where I said, if you ever do that again, we're done. That's not acceptable. If you want to be with me, it has to be done this way. And on several occasions, the other person said, "You're right. That is intolerable. I will not do it that way ever again." Even that, drawing the line on the things that are not acceptable, is part of the powerful personal growth machine.
So infidelity for you is a hard line, no?
I can't say that I always drew that line when it came up back when I was more still in the nice guy stuff.
The nice guy
Here's the thing.
wouldn't. They'll take it and take it until the resentment comes out.
Here's the thing. Dishonesty is more my hard line.
Yeah.
Okay. Without going into a lot of detail, my wife's side of the relationship is open. She has desires to be sexual with more different types of people than I can be. I'm okay with that. She's honest about it. She's transparent about it. There's nothing hidden about it. I'm actually monogamous because I don't want to have sex with anybody else but her. And it's working out just fine. Been doing that for a couple of years. If she lied about anything that she was doing, would I draw a hard line on that? Yeah, I've had to a couple of times. And she goes, "You're right. There was no reason for me to even tell you a lie. I could have just told you the truth because it was okay." So that's to me is hidden, secretive, or deceitful behavior. That is, I'm not a fan of the word toxic because again, it gets used so much
Yeah.
on social media. But yeah, that is toxic to a relationship. Deceitful, hidden, secretive, dishonest behavior. I'm a big fan of let's be integrated, let's be authentic, nothing hidden, nothing half-assed. Let's put everything out there and we'll figure out, do I like me the way I am? Do you like me the way I am? Do I like you the way you are? Not that we're perfect and we never, have to work through some stuff, but let's just put it all out there in the open. I call it getting to rejection quickly. If you don't like the me that
Yeah.
I am with everything in the open, you're not a good partner for me. And if I don't like the you that you are with everything in the open, we're not good partners. So let's get to rejection and move on. But you can't get there if stuff is hidden and secretive. And as a marriage therapist, like I said, I started working with couples 40 years ago. That is the most destructive thing. Beyond infidelity is the secrecy, the lies, and the dishonesty, the hidden stuff. That's what is toxic because now My stepdaughter from my second marriage. All children lie because they have to. They're just trying to level the playing field because they're small and the big people can hurt them. So all children lie. Once she hit adolescence, I remember my stepdaughter, I'd catch her in some mistruths. And she'd go, I tell the truth most of the time. And I remember telling her, I said, you know what? You could be close to an A student in truth telling. You might tell me the truth 88 to 92% of the time is good enough to get you an A in most courses. But I don't know when I'm getting the 8%, 12% untruth. I don't know. So I have to guess or assume maybe everything you say or do might be the 8% untruth. The only way to be like, I love it when nice guys tell me I'm pretty honest. And I go, that's a
Yeah.
contradiction of terms, actually. You can't be pretty honest. You're either honest or you're
Or you're
not.
not.
There's no wiggle room in there. It's not a spectrum, right? You're honest or you're not. And that's a challenge. That's a challenge because it's so easy to be less than honest and justify, well, but I'm mostly honest. And so I'm a big fan. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And yeah, the infidelity, what usually is destructive is the dishonesty part of it.
No, I get that. So what about pornography and how that relates to the nice guy in terms of whether it's trying to cope with something, or there's always a lot of resistance when I talk to other men about their use of pornography and they struggle with it. There's always shame, guilt, and some sort of struggle that they're currently going through that's associated with it. They're using
Yeah.
it as a means of getting through something. You take enough time away from it, you realize that you break that habit, you break the addiction, and then you no longer crave that. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, we can do a whole series of podcasts on
Oh,
it.
I'm sure.
Yes, it is hugely a part of nice guy syndrome. It's usually a part, I think, of most men's lives. I don't approach pornography in
Yeah,
a
just look at
judgmental way.
OnlyFans. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I've never looked at it, so I've heard of, it, but I don't
Well,
even know what that
right.
is.
Yeah.
And I'm not signaling with that. I again, I'm not on social media. I will watch YouTube videos. So here's the deal: when I say the nice guys start hiding things at a very early age, their sexuality is usually part of that. And I think most people culturally around the world hide their sexuality at an early age. Most cultures are pretty much set up to teach their members repress your sexuality. Culture, religion, family are all about how do we manage people and keep control. Government's about that as well. And if you can make people feel bad about themselves for something that's normal or natural, they're easier to control. So that's what we've been doing with sexuality for a long time. Is we found that we've created all kinds of systems to convince people you're bad for having sex, other than in this really narrow band right here, and then we bombard them with sexual stimuli, but we keep reminding them they're bad for having sex. Now, here's the thing: adolescence, depending on the person and their development, around 11, 12, 13, 14, 17, 18, depending on the man or the woman, boy or girl, start having strong drives to be sexual. It's wired into our DNA. It's meant to be there. It's a life preserving, life perpetuating dynamic. But in most cultures, we tell the very people that Mother Nature is saying, all right, start trying to put your parts in parts. It's a good thing. It's the evolutionary imperative. Culture sets it up to make that as hard as possible and to limit the access of the very people who Mother Nature wants putting parts in parts to be doing that. So, what happens in my workshops? I had a workshop here in my home this weekend. I asked a question, and I ask this a lot. And I mainly work with men nowadays, but I've heard the answers. I've worked with enough men and women to know the answer. I ask people, think back to your first sexual memory, whatever that might be. First time as a man, if you noticed you got a hard on, or if you touched your pee-pee, it felt good. Or if you're a woman, first time you touched your vajayjay and you liked it. Or you played, I'll show you mine, you show me yours. Or you were violated, or you got abused, or had a wet dream, or had your first orgasm. Whatever your first memory is, I say, go back. What's the context? Did it happen in the open? Could you share it? Could you talk about it? Could you go to your parents and say, Mom, Dad, this happened to me today? And they go, that's fantastic. That's an important developmental phase for your age. Let's go get pizza and celebrate. Or, no, nobody ever says they went and got pizza for the first sexual experience. What happens is 100% of the time, maybe 99.98% of the time, people say it was hidden, it was secretive, it was in the dark. I kept it. I didn't tell anybody. I felt guilty. I felt bad. I felt shameful. And then if you mix in and if it felt good at the same time, and that happens a lot. If you feel like you're bad, you're doing something wrong, but it sure does feel good, right? Now, sexuality and shame gets crosswired together. Sexuality and secrecy and guilt and hiding. And when was the first time? I interview people, ask people, when was the first time that they had sex that they could openly talk about that in adult company without it? Some people never get around to being able to do that. So
Right.
even when we get married and are now, quote, allowed to have sex, according to most cultural systems, it still keeps we keep it hidden. We don't talk about it. So the thing is, we've all culturally gotten our sexuality crosswired with shame, guilt, secrecy. So unfortunately, that tends to amp up the intensity. Sex is already pretty damn intense. But then when you crosswire that with shame and secrecy and guilt, it makes it even more intense. Okay, so let's back up now. We take the average nowadays kid growing up, 12, 14, 18. My son is 38. And we got our first computers. He was adolescent. And when we got broadband, he's probably 12, 14 years old. He and his stepbrother spent all of their time stealing music on Napster and downloading porn, right? No matter what we did, we
Right.
couldn't. What we actually ended up doing is we finally got rid of broadband and went back to dial up, which probably we're probably the only people
That'll
on the
ruin it.
planet that did that. Yeah. Yeah. Here you go. I think that might be a boob. I think
Yeah.
it might be a boob. All right, it's coming. It might be a boob. As an elbow. So with
Freezes halfway through. Yeah.
it freezes halfway through. Pornography is actually boring enough if you actually take it out of that shame compartment. It's even worse if you have no sound turned on and if it takes forever to load. It's really boring. So,
Yeah.
but what happened is where at my age, you either found dad's Playboy magazine or Hustler, or your buddy found his dad's Playboy, or someone stole one from 7-Eleven. You sneak out, you look at it, and it feels good, but you're doing it secret, hidden, and it feels bad. So, because the average 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old boy does not have sexual access to a real human being, but has unlimited access to pornography. And it is presented to them where you can get every fetish blown up to where that's the only thing that turns you on is to actually watch that particular fetish. And you can get it anytime, anywhere, and you're always going to feel shame attached to it, which amps up the intensity of it. And now, yeah, I've had so many men that I've worked with over the years in therapy. They go, I just assumed when I got a girlfriend or got a wife, I'd quit looking at porn because I wouldn't need it anymore. They don't quit looking at it. Number one is a hell of a lot easier than negotiating sexuality with another live human being and dealing with your own stuff. Because now guys are struggling with, I don't like the terms erectile dysfunction or sexual dysfunction. All right, I come faster than I want to, or I don't always stay hard. Now all of a sudden, that stuff gets magnified because you're with a real human being. If you're looking at porn, there's nobody in porn that's going to shame you for losing an erection or coming quickly. In fact, that's the goal of porn. Let's come quickly so we don't get caught. Then we get with a real person, and guess what our nervous system is doing? We're coming quickly, or we're with a real life human thinking about somebody
Yeah.
that we saw in porn or the woman at the cubicle next to us at work that we'd never even talked to, but we'd sure like to see her naked. We're thinking about her well being. So all of this stuff just gets messed in. So I don't think porn is bad, evil, sinful. I just don't think it serves men well. But until you can peel the shame back from it, men can't break the habit of it. And I call it safe sex because really you don't have to risk the mess of having sex with a real live human. Sex with real live humans is messy. It can be fucking amazing and it can go south really quickly. Things can go wrong quickly. Things can get messy quickly. Another poll that I'll do in my workshops, I'll ask a man, we'll go around the room, round robin. What's everything that could go wrong if you try to put your penis in a vagina? And easily we'll come up with 20, 25 things that might eventually go wrong if you try to put your penis in a vagina. None of those 25 things go wrong if you're looking at porn. So, is there any, and porn's so easy to access.
Yeah,
Most
there's a
men don't
sense
even
of
know.
control. Yeah.
Yeah. And most men don't even know how to access a woman nowadays. Again, because they've not been taught. And, porn's so easy. They never go out and develop the skills that would let them develop a real live human being.
And that's really a lot of the issue is there's so many skills that were missed in childhood, and that goes back to attachment and your observations as a child and what you were exposed to and what you lived with and what you believed to be true about the world and your place in it. But I want to go back a little bit and talk about how this relates to ADHD, because this
Okay.
becomes a conversation as more and more people are identifying with that, especially being diagnosed late in life. They're
Yeah.
taking on that label as well. So, how does that impact the nice guy syndrome?
I think it impacts nice guy syndrome quite a bit, actually. And I think ADHD is an important subject that is like a lot of internet subjects now, has a lot of passion that goes with it. So let's just start with this. Number one, the typical educational system is not set up well to educate little boys. That's a given. I think you can find plenty of evidence to support that. Okay. Little boys don't do well being forced to sit in an uncomfortable chair for hours at a time, listen to a female teacher write on the blackboard, and they have to try to remember what she's talking about. Boys don't learn well that way. Uh, Most of the evidence says that girls learn relatively well in that environment, but boys don't. All the evidence points out that boys and girls actually learn more effectively when not in the same classroom with each other. But that's something that certain entities that be resist that ever happening as well. Are boys overdiagnosed, overmedicated in our school system? Yes, they are. Does that mean they don't really have ADD and they're just being overdiagnosed and overmedicated? Not necessarily. Okay. And where I see it is that in working with adult males, because that's my job. That's all I do is work with adult males these days. And that's all I've done for 20 something years. When I started paying attention to the telltale signs of what we call ADD, ADHD, when I started paying attention to the telltale signs, the procrastination, the inability to follow through on things, the difficulty completing an entire sentence without bouncing to another sentence before completing it, just vaping, chronic vaping. When I started noticing things that I thought, wait a minute, and I started diving in probably about 15 years ago, I've really come to realize there are a lot of adult males with either undiagnosed ADD, or if I start getting all those telltale signals that I think a guy might have ADHD, I'll go, any chance you might have ADHD? And goes, I was diagnosed when I was 14. My dad was, my brother was. Yeah, I've thought about it before. I've been told that before. So usually it's not a surprise. But usually what guys say is, but I don't want to take medication for anything. I go, okay, all right. I said, if they're wearing glasses, I'll say, hand me your glasses. I go, okay, why? Give me your glasses. I said, okay, see that line over there? Read that for me. I can't. I need my glasses. No, read it for me. I can't without my glasses. No, try harder. Read that line for me over there. Why? I can't read it. I said, okay, this is a prescription that helps you read because your eyes don't work as they should, and you need them in order to read. Trying harder doesn't get it. So, what happens for most people, men and women with ADHD, they try twice as hard to accomplish half as much as a person without ADHD. And what usually gets internalized is there's something wrong with me. Now, we don't internalize there's something wrong with me because I can't read that line on the blackboard. I need glasses. I may not want glasses, but at least I don't get internalized. I'm defective. There's something wrong. But what happens for most boys and a lot of boys do outgrow it, a lot of the parts of it, especially the hyperactive parts. If you keep getting in trouble at school, if your parents tell you do this and it goes in one ear and out the other. My stepdaughter's 16. She has ADHD. I do not scold her for all the time she leaves her half empty glass on the bar. I've told her how many times, Reggie, put your glass in the sink, please. And she'll do it when I ask it and watch her and say, do it now. But if I'm not watching her, it doesn't happen. Not because she's rebellious, not smart. It's just it doesn't stick in her brain. That glass that I asked her to put, the glass doesn't need to go in the sink, but I asked her to put it there and she agreed to put it there. And by the time, she turned around to do something else, it was no longer in her
It's
mind.
gone. Yeah.
Okay, it's gone. Now, if you have parents that scold you and punish you for those things, tell you you're stupid, tell you you're never going to amount to anything, that just you get lots of if you get kicked out of class, if you get in the principal's office a lot, if you turn to drugs, alcohol, and smoking at an early age, which a lot of people with ADHD do, if you turn to sex at an early age, if you turn to a lot of those things at early age, that you now start internalizing there's something wrong with me. If you can't make the good grades, and I work with a lot of really smart people that excel purely because they're really smart. They've worked really hard to manage it. Okay. Now, the way most people manage it unconsciously is with stimulants, which is, oh, that's interesting. If you went to a doctor and got diagnosed with ADHD, they'd give you stimulants. They'd give you time to release Adderall or Ritalin. And all the guys that are saying, I don't want to take a prescription for my, they're either smoking or vaping, drinking lots of coffee, lots of sodas, doing risky behaviors, riding motorcycles fast, climbing rocks. All of those things are stimulating. Adrenaline and cortisol are stimulants. And so when guys used to say, oh, I do my best work under pressure, last minute, I go, no, all evidence says you don't. No, I do. This is when I was working with hundreds of Microsoft geeks when I lived up in Bellevue, Washington. Come to find out they were right. When they had a project due the next morning, they're sitting around all night eating pizza, Red Bull, under pressure, stimulate the Red Bull, the adrenaline, the cortisol. They actually pump out pretty good work because they're focused for the very first time. Yeah. Stimulants, paradoxically, the medical world still does not know why. Last time I heard, why they don't know why stimulants help people with ADD focus. Actually, they help everybody focus, but people with ADD, they actually make you calmer. They make me jittery. Okay. So the guys that are, the only time I feel calm is when I'm riding my motorcycle 150 miles an hour because all the adrenaline and cortisol, they're focused down, all their attention's on one thing. When that's not happening, their attention's on the 100 things that are out there. So can we address it without medicating? Probably a lot of times. I'll tell the guys, hey, drinking X amount of Coke or X amount of coffee every day. If that helps you measure it and medicate it, it's really no different than the time release Adderall. They're really just doing the same thing. I tell a guy, if you need to vape, I have guys that do counseling calls with me, coaching calls. They vape the entire time. Okay. It's the only way they can stay focused. Okay. Do it. Now, the one last piece I'll say about this. Personally, my opinion is that what we call ADHD is an evolutionarily adaptive trait. I don't think it would exist if it had not served a purpose in our human evolution. But I think it served the best purpose in a tribal situation where you had some men that noticed everything, the cloud, the rain, the weather, squirrel. They noticed everything. But if everybody got distracted by squirrels, nothing would ever get done. So I think there were people in the tribe that were not easily distracted, who were just like this, but they needed the people who are easily distracted to say, look, that, pay attention. So it serves a purpose in a context in which it can be harnessed and used well. So since we're not in a tribe anymore, what most people with ADHD have to do is they have to consciously either get help doing it or themselves create containers in which they can embrace the positive qualities of the ADHD. Often they're very creative. They're very global. They do see a lot more than people like me. I'm like this a lot. Okay. How can you find a way to create a container to help use the assets of ADHD without it biting you on the ass over and over again? Just my takeaway on ADHD.
No, that is the trick. I can tell you, I ruck every day. I do 7 to 12 miles a day, and that seems to help me from a physical standpoint be able to release the excess energy to be able to then sit down and do things like the podcast or editing or doing all the social media stuff and the writing.
You found your ways.
Yeah.
All my ADHD friends love cold plunges.
Yep.
They've all got their things. They're all into intermittent fasting, anything that kind of resets both the dopamine and just oxygen flow to the brain and bring them more focus. Again, waiting till the last minute. Procrastination, actually, focus.
I don't think that's ever going to go away.
Yeah, yeah, it's probably not going to go away.
Yeah.
But and then also using your coffee wisely, using your other stimulants wisely. I had one friend who had a man bag, and every compartment in it had his place. The phone always went in that pocket, not the outside. That keys always went in that pocket. Reading glasses always went in that pocket. My cousin, his name is actually Danny Glover, believe it or not. My cousin
Nice.
lives in Tennessee. He's a medical doctor, another Dr. Glover. And one time I was visiting him he's a medical doctor, but he has a big piece of property, big house, big farm in his garage, giant garage, lots of shelves. I said, Danny, for a guy with ADD, your garage is the most organized garage of any human being I've ever seen. And he goes, it has to be. If I
Yeah.
put a wrench, a tool down on the edge of my tractor, I'll drive off, forget it. I'll never find it again. I have to go buy a new one. He just learned everything goes back in its place. So you learn to manage it and work with it and use the assets of it.
That's so funny. I'm the same way with that. I'll set something down and then I immediately try to remind myself. I'm like, no, pick it up, put it in its spot. It has to go over
Put
here.
it in its spot.
Yeah.
Exactly. Put it in its spot.
Well, Dr. Robert Glover, I can't say enough how much I appreciate you taking your time with us today and sharing your book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. How can people reach out to you and work with you?
Okay. Two ways. They can go to my website, drglover.com, just drglover.com. I've got my online courses there, consultation, my workshops, podcasts. I also have launched a men's membership program called Integration Nation. And my goal, and I know you've got a program, I'm working with all the other men on the planet who are creating programs. My goal is that every man on this planet who wants to be part of a tribe, part of a membership program, can have access. So if people want more information about Integration Nation, just go to integrationnation.net.
And
You'll
be
find
sure
out
to
all
check the
about
show
it.
notes because I'll drop it there as well.
Appreciate it.
Bob, I can't thank you enough, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the invite.
Hey, it's Jason from the Blueprint Podcast. Are you looking to transform the way you understand and interact with yourself and others? If so, our On Attachment Masters series might just be what you need. Join me and a stellar lineup of experts, authors, therapists, coaches for a transformative 6-week journey. Each week, we'll dive into the essential topics like attachment styles, overcoming self-sabotage, and how to cultivate healthier and more fulfilling relationships. You'll not only gain insights, but also participate in live Q&A sessions where you'll get direct feedback and advice tailored to your own experiences. Are you interested yet? Well, it gets even better. We're fostering a supportive community where you can connect with others who are on the same path as you, making your journey even more enriching. Spaces are limited, but we want to keep this experience intimate, so don't wait. Visit our website and check out the link in the show notes to sign up today. Start your journey toward deeper self-awareness and more meaningful relationships with On Attachment Masters series. To learn more, just comment attached anywhere you find us on social media or message us directly. We're happy to help unlock your potential.